Hello friends, how are you all? I am Nupur. Welcome everybody to my YouTube channel, Nature at the Very Core of Science. Today, I will be speaking and sharing with you about a new book I just read. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. So let me just share with you some of the facts on the storyline of the book. When I Was the Greatest, this book was written by #1 New York Times best-selling American author Jason Reynolds in 2014. Yes, the book is 11 years old. But you know, the context, the realm of the book is still very much relevant, if not even more meaningful in today's world. So, now is the time. Grab a copy and get going. It's a coming-of-age novel about friendship and loyalty across neighborhood lines and the hardship of life. The story is very funny and rewarding. The title of the book references Muhammad Ali, who also refused to be boxed into stereotypes. Let's know a little bit about Jason Reynolds, the author. After earning a Bachelor of Arts in English from the University of Maryland, College Park, Reynolds moved to Brooklyn, New York, where you can often find him walking the 4 blocks from the train to his apartment talking to himself. Well, not really talking to himself, but just repeating character names and plot lines he thought of on the train over and over again, because he's afraid he'll forget it all before he gets home. I'm sure you are intrigued to know the plot of the story. Okay, see guys, telling the whole story would spoil your fun of discovery, so I won't tell it all. But I will just touch on it and pick your interest. This gritty, triumphant debut captures the heart and the hardship of life for an urban teen. The protagonist in the story, Alan, aka Ali. He is around 15 years old, nearing his 16th birthday, living with his mother Doris and younger sister Jazz in the Bed-Stuy neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York, where a small misunderstanding can escalate into having a price on your head, even if you are totally clean. There is an interesting aspect of Alan's nickname, Ali. This reflects his boxing abilities and is likely a reference to the famous boxer Muhammad Ali, who won the heavyweight title 3 times. And yes, we found in Jason Reynolds' this book also that Ali is a young boxer who also refuses to be defined by stereotypes. Here is an interesting incident that my mind wandered to share with you, and I'm certain that many of you know what caused Muhammad Ali to start fighting. Yes, you are absolutely right. At the age of 12, Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. discovered his talent for boxing through an odd twist of fate. After his bike was stolen, Clay told police officer Joe Martin that he wanted to beat up the thief. Well, you better learn how to fight before you start challenging people, Martin reportedly told him at the time. Without further ado, let's get to the description given by Ali about his neighborhood and his friends, the 2 very important characters of the story. A lot of the stuff that gives my neighborhood a bad name, I don't really mess with. The guns and drugs and all that, not really my thing. Nah, not his thing. Ali's got enough going on between school and boxing and helping out at home. His best friend, Noodles, though, now there is a dude looking for trouble. And somehow it's always Ali around to pick up the pieces. But hey, a guy's got to look out for his boys, right? Besides, it is all small potatoes. It's not like anyone's getting hurt. And then there is Niddles. Niddles is Noodles' brother. He is got a syndrome and gets these tics and blurts out the wildest, craziest things. It's cool though. Everyone on that street knows he doesn't mean anything by it. Yeah, it's cool. until Ali and Noodles and Needles find themselves somewhere they never expected to be, somewhere they never should have been, where the people are not so friendly and even less forgiving. The story is interesting, as I said. I would love to read Ali's first interaction with Malloy, an experienced boxer. It is in chapter 3 of the book. The interaction is not only fascinating, but a very tender affair, a description that brings tears to the eyes. So Ali is brought to the boxing gym where Malloy is introduced as the legendary trainer, a gruff but respected figure deeply rooted in the Brooklyn boxing scene. Ali is immediately struck by Malloy's intense gaze and the aura of experience he carries, signifying the beginning of their mentor-student relationship. Remember, the setting was the boxing gym, a place that is immediately familiar and comfortable for Malloy, but somewhat intimidating for a young Ali. And Malloy's demeanor was strict, observant, and seemingly uninterested in pleasantries, which immediately established his reputation as a no-nonsense trainer. On the other hand, Ali's perception was a mix of awe and apprehension, recognizing Malloy's boxing pedigree while feeling the weight of his scrutiny. So let's listen to the piece of the story. A few days after the whole urn-stealing incident, I went down to Block to Malloy's house to clean up for him as usual and to get some training in. The thing about Malloy is he is one of those old-school Brooklyn dudes. One of those great-great-grandfather was born here and bought in a brownstone in exchange for a pair of steel-toe boots and a pot of grits, and kept it in the family for 100 years, and now Malloy lives in it to keep the traditional going types of people, just like Mr. Bryson was, and actually just like my mom is. It wouldn't surprise me if he was born in an alley or behind a bodega. That Brooklyn. Lots of kids these days got Brooklyn tattooed on them or talk mess to out-of-towners about how Brooklyn they are, but they ain't nowhere near as Brooklyn as Malloy. Ain't nobody as Brooklyn as Malloy. Malloy himself told me that he had never really even been out of Brooklyn except for the time he spent in the service, Army, Vietnam. He was drafted. He said back in those days was not no black kids just signing up to fight. He said, we was not that dumb or that stupid. I always laughed when he said that. Malloy said back then he felt like the government was substituting all the poor black kids for the rich white kids when it came to serving in the war and that getting that letter in the mail. The one that said he had been drafted felt like he was called from the far end of the home team bench, asked to go in the game and sucker punch the other team's start player. Take the rap, be that bad guy. That's how Malloy always put it. He never went into too much detail about the actual war, though I got the feeling he just didn't like talking about it too much. Once I asked him if he ever killed somebody and all he said was, ain't grit groceries? I took that as a yes. One thing he loved talking about, though, was how Muhammad Ali didn't have to fight in the war. He always said how he respected Ali for standing up to the government even though they put him in jail. I wonder, what was worse, jail or war? Well, I guess if you were in Muhammad Ali, one of the biggest stars and the best fighter ever, jail ain't so bad. I mean, it ain't like people were going to mess with the champ. Shoot, the biggest and ugliest dude in them was probably begging for Ali's autograph. But for a regular Brooklyn Joe like Malloy, I am not so sure. When I asked him what he learned from the army, he said he learned discipline, brotherhood, and most importantly, how to box. Said he was the baddest boxer in his camp and couldn't nobody see him with the hands, too fast, too focused, floating and stinging just like Muhammad Ali. Except he ain't sting like no bee, more like a Mack truck. He bragged. Malloy always said that the army was okay, but it was the war that messed him up. Like I said, he never talked too much about it, but one thing he never seemed to mind was running down the story of what it was like waking up in the medic tent with no legs. It's strange still. It will always be a little strange, he said, his eyes looking away at something invisible. You spend your whole life running, paying attention to nothing but all the dumb stuff, and then one day, while you're running, something runs into you and leaves you with nothing. I really didn't understand totally what that meant, but it somehow made sense in some kind of way. The liquor on his breath was always there, just like the tears caked and crusty in the corners of his eyes. And he hated for anyone to try to ignore his legs. His nubs didn't look like legs at all. They looked more like giant fingers attached to his waist. When I first started coming to his house, I would try not to look at them because my mother taught me real early in life that it was rude to stare. She said she would slap my eyes off if she caught me. Picture that, her slapping my eyes off. So when I first met him, I would look all around the room at his face, over his head, at the floor, everywhere but his legs. Until finally, one day he said, "Listen, the most important rule when you're dealing with me is the obvious should never be ignored." I did not know how to take that statement, but I knew early that it was an important one. He followed up with, "Now look at them, it's okay. That way, the pathetic legless elephant can disappear and we can get the hell on with it." His role in my life, according to Doris, was to be some sort of positive male figure. Go figure. But not just me. A lot of the kids in the neighborhood, mostly the ones without fathers in the house, would randomly pop up at Malloy's and talk to him about girls and, well, mostly girls. And he would be there to listen and give some drunken but still pretty solid advice. My mother had known him since she was a little girl growing up in the same house I'm growing up in now. She said her father, my grandfather, Kirby, and Malloy were pretty much best friends, which is why she trusted him to look after me. She started sending me over them when I was around 6. I guess she figured anything to keep me on the good path while John was locked up. Jazz was a little girl, and Doris probably just needed a break or some help. So one day she walked me down there. When Malloy opened the door, he looked at my mother's face and could probably see how tired she was. She always says it was like Malloy was reading her. There was no conversation about why she brought me there or what she needed. Nothing like that. Malloy didn't even invite her in. All he did when he opened the door and saw us was squeeze my mother's hand and say, "Okay." I have only been in one room in Malloy's house, the gym, which is really the living room. On the walls, there are posters of boxers, Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis, who I found out later Malloy named his grandson after, Sugar Ray Robinson, Jack Johnson. It is just a big open space for sparring, and over on the side he's got a few dumbbells, a weight bench, a speed bag, and 2 punching bags, one hanging from the ceiling and one on a stand. The one on the stand is for him. No one can touch it. He keeps a permanent bottle of gin on a small, shaky wooden table in the corner and a carton of Newport cigarettes next to it, along with a few military medals. His face is like leather, and he usually keeps sunglasses on, even inside. He always wears an army t-shirt and old blue jeans, the thick medium blue kind from back in the day. He knots them at the legs and cuts the extra fabric, which makes his legs look like denim sausages. It is strange to describe a person who does not wear shoes because he does not have feet, but he does not have feet. The first time I went to Malloy's, as soon as I got inside, he asked for my hand. I gave it to him, and he shook it tighter than anyone had ever shaken it, and then he balled it up into a fist. "Where is your father?" he said, sort of rudely. I couldn't believe that was the first thing out of his mouth. What a jerk, I remember thinking. "I don't know." "You know him?" "Yeah." When is the last time you seen him? I don't know. My mother told me to never tell people my dad was in jail. She did not want people to judge us. Are you mad about that? Malloy squeezed my fist tighter. Are you mad at him, son? I did not know what was going on. I started feeling scared. I was only 6. Why was he grilling me with all these questions? Why was he squeezing my fist? I thought my mother just needed a break, a babysitter that was a man, so that I could have a strong man around since my father was locked up. Is this what strong men do? I don't know, I answered, stuttering. You don't know? He said, confused. Well, let me ask you this. Let's pretend this punching bag is your father. What do you want to do to him? He slowly released my fist. My nails were digging so deep into my palm that I thought I had broken the skin. Show me, he said again, this time nudging my shoulder. I turned toward the punching bag, opened my fist, and wrapped my arms around it. Malloy sat there in his chair staring at 6-year-old me, hugging a punching bag like it was a person. He nodded his head like I had passed some sort of test. Okay, I got it, he said. I stepped back. So you are not mad? No, sir. Then I wanna teach you something. He took my hands in his and continued. And I'm only gonna teach you because I know you won't abuse it like some of the other kids around here. You love first, and that's always a good thing. You are not fighting the war that so many of the other kids are fighting. You are rebelling against it, like Muhammad Ali. You know who that is? I shook my head, yes. You are like him, got a heart for people. He looked at me for a second with a funny smirk on his face. I'm not sure I really knew all of what was going on. Okay, I said. I had no idea where this was going, but I was hoping that eventually it would lead to a TV and a snack. This time he balled both of my hands up into fists. I want to teach you how to box, kid. Now here I am, almost 10 years later, still at it, except I am actually throwing punches now.